Thanks for listening to the NVTV podcast, produced by Neuqua Media.
Hello, and welcome to this episode of the NVTV podcast. I am Addison Tedrow, and on today's show, we are going to talk about the books that we read in English class and what we can probably learn from their message. Joining me today is Dr. Hobbs, one of our English teachers here at Neuqua Valley, and my former honors English teacher. Thank you so much for being here today.
Thank you for having me.
So, Dr. Hobbs, which English book would you say is probably your favorite out of just all of them?
That is so hard to answer.
It is. There's such good ones.
That's a very hard question to answer, but I will tell you I do have a few that I love going back to every single year. I really enjoy teaching The Great Gatsby by Scott Fitzgerald at the end of the sophomore curriculum. I've taught a number of other novel-based courses throughout my 23 years in the district, and so I really enjoy teaching The Handmaid's Tale.
Ooh, I've never actually read The Handmaid's Tale yet.
That was when I taught 20th century literature as a senior course. We just added in the past couple years, a couple new books to the curriculum at the sophomore honors level, and so I've been enjoying teaching The Underground Railroad by Colson Whitehead, and specifically now Our Missing Hearts by Celeste Ng.
That was definitely one of my favorite books. One of my personal favorites actually was Romeo and Juliet as well. I loved the love story. When we were acting it out in English class, I was Mercutio, I believe. Really put everything into my role. But it was just I enjoyed the story about how, conflict. I think there were a few messages in there actually. One of the ones I kind of focused on a little was how the conflict between two families, this conflict can lead to tragedy as well. What was your take on it? As a teacher, you've been teaching definitely for a while about all these books. Do you kind of have a really good understanding as to what that the prime message of that book is?
Of Romeo and Juliet?
Yes. Did you read that one?
I certainly have. I think Romeo and Juliet is often taken to task because it's seemingly a love story between some teenagers, and it only lasts, a very short period of time, and people sometimes laugh and they say, gosh, if they had just waited a few more minutes, none of that tragedy at the very end would have actually happened. But I think what it speaks to is the idea that, there are sometimes conflicts that last a really long time between families, between communities, and ultimately what that does is that can cause, problems in the next generation of whomever is coming.
It's okay. I think, yeah, of course. Honestly, I kind of thought that, I think a lot of the things that the kids in my class focused on was why did they just go straight to death? Why didn't they wait? Why didn't, I think I like to focus on how that feeling of helplessness, you think that at least from, it's been a while since I've read the book, but I think at least from Romeo's perspective, I believe he thinks, was it Romeo or Juliet who thought the other was dead first? It was which one died first, I think.
Romeo thought Juliet was dead.
Yeah, so
she took the potion that kept her
yes.
kind of in that weird coma state, yeah.
And he he thought that everything was over. That was the love of his life, and he felt helpless. He's well, it's just, there's nothing else to live for. And then there's that, the helplessness feeling, of course. And honestly, I think that's actually a common theme among a lot of the books that we read in English class.
It is, honestly. I think that, there are books that are known to be part of the literary canon, and those are books that typically would be, more like a Hemmingway or, Shakespere, or Fitzgerald or whatever. And what we find in those types of books is, common morals and themes that we still see in society on a daily basis or on a regular basis. And I think that people can connect with those ideas still, even if it's, it takes place in ancient Italy, or if it's, in a futuristic society that is, that's kind of dystopic. I think one of the things that literature can do for us is it can enlighten areas that have been maybe a little bit dark in history, and it also can help us make sense of what seems to be hard to understand, nonsensical.
And like you just mentioned, like society is definitely a huge, like another one of those huge themes, Fahrenheit 451 especially. I thought that was definitely a huge societal thing. It was like the burning the books, right? And that definitely ties into real life from what we've seen in the past few years, especially I think there was definitely some book burnings by a bit, but then there were also the banning of books in schools, especially down in Florida. They have like so many books that they have banned. And I think it's funny how like a lot of these old books, it's like history repeating itself. And I believe actually wasn't who's the author of Fahrenheit 451 again?
Ray Bradbury.
Wasn't this like his prediction of the future?
Yeah, and we saw that from Orwell too with 1984. We've seen that from quite a few authors actually. In fact, that they are a little bit more maybe in tune with kind of the direction of what they see society doing or replaying, reliving, re-experiencing throughout time. And they offer us warnings. They offer, be careful of the society that will tell you not to believe what you see with your own eyes, right?
Exactly,
Or not
yes.
to understand or listen to what you hear with your own ears. Be careful of the place where you are not allowed to read what you want to read.
Yeah.
Interact with information in a proactive way.
Like that control over the like what people can view. So I believe one of the questions that I heard a while back was, would you rather be like happy and unaware, or like know the truth and be kind of like unhappy almost? And I think my class was definitely like very divided on that. What would you choose if you were asked that question?
That's a tough one. We talk about that in my philosophy class when we talk about the movie The Matrix.
Oh,
and,
yes.
Would you rather know the truth and be, part of the resistance in that movie? Or would you rather just live in blissful ignorance? And one of the things I've always appreciated about that Socratic discussion with my students is that they're very honest, and it is pretty equally split. I think that I've always liked being a student. I've always liked reading and researching. I read everything I get my hands on, and so I don't believe that I would be able to live in a state of ignorance if I knew there was something out there that I was turning my head to.
Yeah, I can remember one of my classmates said that they put this best actually. It was if you choose the other option to know the truth, then it's almost like your sense of safety, your sense of like knowing where you belong in the world is almost shattered, and you're kind of lost, almost like you don't know what to do with this information. Except like in the Matrix, it's like, oh, join the resistance, rise up. And I definitely want to talk about To Kill a Mockingbird. That book, I was kind of just confused. I think that was probably one of the first English books that we've read, and I didn't really get it. Like, it was almost like To Kill a Mockingbird, like, you don't do that. I think the Mockingbird is only referenced, like, one time, and that was where I believe her scout, that was her name, the main character, just, like, throws a stone at her or something, and this old lady was like, oh, don't throw... I don't really know. Like, I just didn't get that book. Like, what did you think of it?
Well, I love that book for the classic literature that it is. It has, over time, it has shown us, kind of shine a lot of light on how people are mistreated in society, marginalized, standing up for what's right, standing up for those who are voiceless in the moment. Sometimes it is criticized for, being a little heavy-handed in that way. I've always kind of appreciated that. That's been one of the things that I kind of try to bring into my daily life is, being aware of being a voice for the voiceless and standing for something that, might seem like an injustice. And so that is, I think, one of the things that I take mostly from that book.
Yeah, now I'm definitely recalling. There was the how her scout's father was criticized by the townspeople for being a lawyer for this black man that was accused of such a horrible crime. And I like what you said there about a voice for the voiceless, because he stepped up to kind of, be the voice, and that was kind of very inspirational, I believe. So that is all the time we have here today. Thank you so much, Dr. Hobbs, for joining us today on the NVTV podcast. The NVTV podcast is produced by media students at Neuqua Valley High School, and enjoy the rest of your day.